This is episode 19 with Jason Goldberg.
Welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, the show that empowers you to become the hero of your life's journey. With your host, Brian Tier.
Hey guys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, episode 19 today. And I want to give you some background story on today's guest. Now, every now and then I sit down and dream up kind of like a dream list or an ideal list of people I'd love to interview. And this week, I'm very excited to be speaking to one of the people from that list. It's none other than Jason Goldberg. And Jason is an award-winning entrepreneur, a recent TEDx speaker, a former rapper who opened for the Wu-Tang Clan, previously 332-pound man who is now an international speaker, coach, trainer, and host. Plus, he's just an all-around funny, cool guy. Having spent more than 10 years in a successful corporate career, Jason was making six figures by his mid-20s, yet somehow something still felt off. And while he'd previously blamed outside factors for his unhappiness, things like, people or circumstances or the job, Jason began to realize that he had the power and the ability to determine how he felt and to determine his happiness. Now, we touch on some really powerful stuff in this interview, and if you've been feeling uninspired in your work or life lately, or feel like you'll be happy when fill in the irrelevant external factor here, then this episode's definitely for you. In this episode, you'll learn why the perfect job / relationship / body won't bring what you've been looking for, how to turn mundane, boring days into brand new, exciting experiences, the quickest way to find a job that you actually like doing, how to become a self-leader in your life and what that actually means, how to engineer enthusiasm in your current job, the advice he wishes he'd been given in his 20s, and what Jason believes is the greatest opportunity for quarter lifers today. Now, as always, you can catch the resources and links in the show notes, which you'll find at briantier.com/019. And Jason was also kind enough to throw in a list of resources that he normally only shares with his paying clients and speaking clients at the end of the interview. So make sure you listen to that. But for now, let's go hang out with Jason Goldberg. Welcome back, everyone, and a huge welcome. I'm in full-on fangirl mode today. Today's guest, Jason Goldberg. Welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback.
Dude, you have got the deepest fangirl voice I've ever heard in my entire life. I was expecting like Justin Bieber's shrieks, but I'm fangirling out too, man. I'm super excited to be here, and I'm honored that you invited me on your awesome show, man.
Is it that obvious?
Not at all, dude. I love it.
Yeah, I think today is going to be quite a fun interview. We both enjoy a little bit of humor, and I can see that on your website and your talk and everything, which I'll link to in the show notes. But I was wondering if we could start right at the beginning, and if you could tell the listeners a little bit about your quarter life story and what you went through in your sort of 20s and early 30s. I know on your website you said, you kind of sucked at life for the first 30 years of it. So I wonder if you could take us through that.
Yeah, definitely, man. I say that, and it was, partially it's kind of to be funny and tongue in cheek, but partially it wasn't. Like, it's kind of serious. It's kind of true. And when I say I sucked at life for about the first 30 years of it, it was just I kind of sucked at the way I looked at life. I kind of sucked at the perspective or the lens through which I was seeing life, and so I lived as a prisoner of circumstance, and I was just always blaming somebody outside of me, always looking for like, who can I blame and who can I put this on, because it's not my responsibility. It's my, overly demanding boss or my idiotic coworkers or my stupid clients or like whatever it is. There was always something outside of me. And I lived that way forever because it was just the way I was brought up. Like it didn't mean I was stupid or I was wrong for thinking that way. I had never really had it modeled to be any other way. So if you're raised in a household that, speaks nothing but French, if you don't speak Chinese, you're not stupid. You just weren't ever exposed to the language of Chinese. And so it was, it took me the better part of 30 years to realize, there's a different language I could be speaking than the one that I currently walk around speaking and living as if it's the only truth in the world. So So that's kind of an overview. But what that looked like in my professional life was I got into IT very early. I was very, very blessed, very grateful, and also put the work in to be able to get into IT very early. So I was in technology very early. I got my first official, tech related job when I was 16. And then I stayed in IT for, over a decade, probably 13, 14 years that I was in IT, which was great. That means by my mid 20s, so around my quarter life, I was, making six figures, and I was a director of engineering and operations for a tech firm, and I was doing really, really well professionally. And at the same time, probably something that every one of your listeners, and I know you as well, can relate to, something just felt off. And I wasn't destitute. I definitely wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. I had everything I wanted, material wise, and a nice car, a nice condo, and I was with my wife already, which I think we were dating at the time. But the woman who became my wife, I had a great relationship. But again, something was off. I was bored. And at the same time, I was super overwhelmed, and I was working 80 hours a week. And I had just all this anger and this anxiety and this depression that I had had my whole life. And it just felt like, dude, something's off. Like something's got to change, because I can't keep living this way. And I didn't know what that thing was. I didn't know what was going to change it, but I just knew this sucks. And this can't be the way life is going to be the rest of my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And do you think a large part of that was because you were always looking outside for when things went wrong, like blaming other things or other people?
Yeah, totally. So my life was spent trying to modify and mold and manipulate all of the external circumstances in my life, which means I was never here in my own body and in the present moment. I was always looking for some way to manipulate things outside of me. And sometimes that worked, and those were the happy times. And sometimes it didn't work, and those were the crappy times. And so it's this cycle of like, I'm only happy and successful when I successfully fix or change something outside of me, which is just a crappy way to waste your energy and your creativity. Like, we have, in my mind, so much access to just an innate level of tremendous amounts of courage and creativity and consciousness. And that was just a total misuse of all those gifts by trying to change the things that were outside of me.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. And I mean, you also, now you've gone through from those days to now is obviously a huge transformation. And I know you lost a lot of weight as well. And so what was the turning point? What kind of made the change start taking place?
Yeah, I think so. The weight was something that the physical weight was something I had struggled with my entire life, Brian. I mean, like, from the time I was, and how do you guys measure weight in South Africa? I have to always try to like translate this.
Yeah, we use kilograms, and I think you were about 330 pounds, right?
I was 332 pounds. So what's that in kilograms?
Yeah, so it's about 150 kilograms.
Okay, so that's still pretty big, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's
that is a large unit, yeah.
yeah, a large unit. God, if only the women that I came up around would describe me as having a large unit, I would have been fine with that. That never happened though. So anyway, so I was big my entire life. I was 250 pounds when I was 15. And it's like, when you're 15, I mean, I don't know if you remember this, and the people that are listening remember this, but 15 is like when kids are just at their cruelest.
Yeah.
Like, they just, and it's not their fault. They have their own fear and their own hormones. They're going through their own crap. And so I have compassion and understanding for what they're going through. But I didn't have compassion and understanding for what they were going through when I was 15, because they made my life hell. And so, just being so heavy my entire life, that was always something I kept falling back into, emotional eating. And that's kind of how I got up to 332 pounds, is always turning to food to be my comfort, food when I celebrated, food when I was sad. And it just became a big deal. And that physical weight that I was holding on to just was a beautiful breeding ground for mental weight and financial weight and spiritual weight and emotional weight and all these other weights that I was carrying around. So when I finally got into a place where I was ready to change my physical appearance, because even then I still kind of thought, living in this outside in world, which I no longer, I try not to live in as much as possible and try to live from the inside out now. But in this outside in world, even the weight loss was the thing I thought was going to make my life perfect or make my life happier. And so losing the physical weight, which was a huge transformation, I lost 130 pounds over the course of a couple of years. And it taught me so much about taking personal responsibility and being what I now call a self-leader. That was great. It had a huge impact in my life. And at the same time, it still didn't fix everything because it was still very outside in. And so for me, it was losing weight. For somebody who's listening to this, it could be like when I get that perfect relationship, when I finally find the woman who accepts me for me, and I finally find the job that pays me to do work I love, like all these things that sound great and they really can contribute to kind of a sense of fulfillment or a sense of purpose or a sense of happiness, they're still not the thing. So until we recognize that we're perfectly perfect in this moment, that we are surrounded by miracles, that we are limitlessly and unconditionally supported by the universe and everything in it, and that we can choose to be happy now, not as a thing to get to, but as a part of the path, until we really get that, then we're constantly in this loop and this struggle and this cycle.
Man, that's powerful. And I think what you just said pretty much sums up the quarter life crisis. And why people get into this funk. And it leads me to my next question. So, I think a lot of quarter lifers and millennials and 20 somethings, whatever you want to call them, are feeling uninspired. And you mentioned a lot of the examples there, like when I get the perfect relationship, or especially I think a large part of the audience will resonate with, when I find that job. But there's a big chance that you get that job that you thought was the saving grace and suddenly you're still not feeling inspired. And you recently gave a TEDx talk, which we'll link to in the show notes, which will be at briantier.com/019. But in your talk, you mentioned, how do we manufacture fascination and engineer enthusiasm? And I wonder if you could just give us sort of the Cliff Notes version of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to. And thank you. And that was a surreal experience. And, as a professional speaker and a keynote speaker and a trainer, that's kind of like a bucket list thing for me, dude. I was pretty excited to do that. And it was great. It took them forever to get the video out, but the video is finally out. And yeah, I totally get that. Like that is I know a lot of, quarter lifers or millennials or whatever experience that. This is really a part of human condition at any age, which I think, and I talk about this in my talk, I think this comes more and more in our lives as we get older and older. So, when we're young, it's very easy for us to experience fascination and to experience enthusiasm because everything feels new, everything feels novel. And so if that's what we learn when we're younger, then it just goes to show or stands to reason that as you get older, the key again is to find things outside of you that are fascinating so you can reactivate that sense of energy, that sense of excitement. And unfortunately, what that ends up being in our real lives is that we're constantly looking for a new and novel thing to change our experience. So, we need these things outside of us. It's the reason people, thrill seek and job hop and have promiscuous sex and get into drugs and alcohol and stuff, partly because they think they need that thing outside of them to reactivate some sense of excitement inside of them. So the big shift that I talk about in the talk and the big shift that's happened for me and dude, let me just say, like, I am in no way, shape, or form an enlightened guru who levitate around all day. This is shit that I still work on. I mean, this is like, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
In that case,
maybe we need to stop
man.
the interview.
This is not what I thought I was getting.
I know. I always screw people up with that. They think I have all the answers. So I love this because, and for anybody listening who's a teacher or a speaker or a trainer or a coach, like we teach what we need to learn. It's like our biggest struggles are our greatest gifts. And so for me, like the reason that talk was important for me to create and to deliver about how to manufacture fascination, how to engineer enthusiasm, how to create these things as a choice as opposed to being reliant on external stimuli is because it's still something that shows up in my life. And so I'm continually working on this the same way that Michael Jordan was always working on his jump shot. He never like said one day, you know what, I'm done. Just call me when it's time for the game and I'll just show up and do my thing. Like, no, it was a practice for life. That's awesome that we get to do that. So for me, it's this constant practice of, can I really slow down in this moment? And instead of requiring something outside of me to give me a sense of fascination, instead of being this prisoner of circumstance, for better or for worse, being a prisoner of circumstance doesn't just mean that you're sad when bad things happen. It also means you're reliant on something else to make you happy. So instead of me being a prisoner waiting for something to fascinate me, what if I slow down? And what if I look at the things that are happening in my life that I just let pass by every day, and I say, oh, I've had that meal 1,000 times. I've had that conversation 1,000 times. I've seen that person 1,000 times. I know everything there is to know about everything I've experienced. What if I slowed down and said, wait a second, there's something about this that's always brand new, because I'm always evolving. I'm always growing. I'm always changing. And if I can really slow that down and question what I think I know, instead of just believing whatever stories I have going on in my head, then I can experience somewhat seemingly boring things as if they're the first time I'm ever experiencing them. From a cup of coffee, to a meal, to a staff meeting, to a first date, to a 50th date, to whatever. I can make all those things brand new in my mind's eye, in my inside out experience. Does that make sense?
Man, that is so huge. I actually wish I'd heard this a few years ago, but I think
me too.
I mean, this podcast's never been about sort of strictly career focused, but I know a lot of the people that listen are struggling in that department where they're feeling unfulfilled at work. And if you adopt that sort of mindset that you just described, every day can be something new and a new adventure. And, you don't have to see your job as something mundane and boring that you have to sit in traffic for every day. So I think that was really huge. Thanks for that. And
yeah, my pleasure. And can I say one more thing about that real quick? Do you mind?
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. Yeah. So for people who are in that position, there's another interesting byproduct of this, is that when you start doing this, when you really start slowing down and creating fascination, choosing enthusiasm, doing what I say in the talk, finding miracles in the mundane, here's the awesome side effect. This is not like woo-woo, airy-fairy, again, levitating guru stuff. This is you changing your level of consciousness and priming yourself to see opportunities. So the quickest way to find a job that you actually like doing and that you feel more fulfilled from and that you get more joy from is to put yourself in a place where you're already feeling those things, and thus you see the opportunity to do those things in the outside world. So many people who go to a job every day, and believe me, I know, dude, like when I was in my corporate job making 6 figures, I was not the guy saying like, yes, I'm going to find the gift in this job. And no, I was like total victim. Like, oh, I can't wait to get out of this piece of crap job. Even though it's paying me all this money, I'll be so happy when I become an entrepreneur because that'll be easy. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. But the thing is that, yeah, exactly. I get to pick my own 70 hours. That's what I say about entrepreneurs. So, but here's the thing is that like when we prime ourselves to say, I'm going to fall in like with this job, I'm going to find the clues inside of this job that are pointing me to the things I really enjoy doing. When we really kind of keep that mindset, then it's so much easier for us to find the next job opportunity, the next business opportunity, the next person we may want to be in a relationship with, the next solution to the big problem. Like if we really want to be creative and do different things in the world, being in this optimistic, creative place is the best, most effective way to find those opportunities elsewhere. So this is not just like, oh, feel good and put on pink, glasses and hope everything's okay. Like, no, this is a path to creating what you want.
Yeah, I just threw away my pink glasses.
Well, no, send them to me. I'll wear them. Send them to me.
Something else I want to go back to quickly is you mentioned like we teach the things we need to learn, and that's like I've told a few people close to me, like that's one of the reasons that I launched this podcast. Is if I'm being selfish about it, there were kind of 3 reasons. One was I didn't need to be an expert. I could get people on who are experts in their field and contribute more to my listeners and my audience than if I had to pretend I knew everything. The other was connecting with people and growing my network. And the third one was like, I actually want to learn this stuff. I'm in the trenches with everyone else who's listening. I'm by no means like got everything figured out. So yeah, I can definitely understand and resonate with that point of view.
I love that.
You mentioned earlier, and it's something that you focus on a lot in your work, self-leadership. And what I love is that, you were in your 30s when you started and made this big shift. And most of the people listening will be a few years ahead of that. So they can, they have the advantage of, if they're listening to this, putting this into action even earlier. So if people are listening to this, how can they go about becoming a self-leader?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think that the younger you are when you get this, like literally, if I had gotten this when I was 25, and I don't wish that I did, because obviously I needed to go through whatever path I needed to go through to be the man that's, sitting here talking to you now. But if I was able to learn this earlier on in my life, I don't even know where I'd be now. I mean, maybe I'd be, running against Trump for president. Who knows? But the great thing is, though, is that self-leadership is, it's not a permanent and pervasive thing, just like being a prisoner is not a permanent and pervasive thing. So the first thing I would say is, anybody who's listening to this right now, and you're hearing what I'm saying about, being attached to outside, outcomes and external circumstances, and you think like, oh, here's my other mantra. I had the who can I blame? The other mantra I had was, that's just the way I am. Right. So when I would like blow up and get angry about everything, and my wife would be like, what's wrong? Like, why do you react that way? Like, why do you do that? And I'd say, that's just the way I am. I can't change it. It's just the way I react, and I get angry and I punch walls. That's just the way I am. And that's like the most debilitating thing in the world. So for anybody listening who hears what I'm saying and says, oh crap, I've been that way too in the past, or I'm that way now, just know that's not a death sentence. That's a moment by moment decision. There's nothing in your DNA that makes you a prisoner, even if you spent 20 or 25 years being that way. So the greatest thing about being a self-leader is that it literally is a moment by moment choice. Once you understand that it is a moment by moment choice, then in any given moment when you feel like you're being a prisoner, there are limitless ways to shift in that moment and choose to be a self-leader. And my book will be out in like probably a month and a half. I don't know when this is going to air, but my book, Prison Break, is all about making that shift from being a prisoner to a self-leader. But the Cliff Notes version of that is, it's really about slowing down. It's about questioning whatever stories and thoughts that you have going on in your mind to get yourself to a more clear and a more calm and a more conscious place. And then from there, it's saying, given the circumstances that I'm in, given the conditions of the game in which I'm playing, and those conditions could be a crap relationship, a crap job, not having a lot of money, not knowing what I want to do with my life, living at home with my parents, like whatever it is, whatever the conditions of the game are, given those conditions, what would I love to create? Right? What would be an ideal situation? How do I want to feel? And how do I create the thinking? How do I really start crafting and creating a story that would serve me and empower me to move forward one step at a time, just for today, not forever, but on a moment by moment basis, choosing to be 5% more of a self-leader? That's the way it happens over and over again.
Yeah, just out of interest, do you have because this episode is going to go out probably next week, do you have a sort of pre-launch page for the book that we can link to?
I don't, but if you go to my website and you sign up on the list there, I'm probably going to start sending out some sample chapters just so people can get an idea. And there's a lot of stuff on my website too, which, kind of just talks about self-leadership in general. So anybody that wants to head over there, that would be great.
Yeah, we'll link that up. Jason,
awesome.
You mentioned, you kind of wish, but also kind of didn't wish that you'd learned this stuff in your mid-20s. What advice do you wish you had received in your 20s?
Oh, man, God, there's so much. There are a few things. I mean, I think one of the first things that's coming up for me just in this moment, if I'm not really thinking too much about it, is this whole notion of gentleness with the process, right? And not beating ourselves up, and not, thinking that we should be further along than we are, and not thinking that, not making wherever we are in our world mean something about us. Like, oh, well, if I was really smart, I'd be further along. Or if I was really meant to be an entrepreneur, I would have figured it out by now. Or whatever these stories are. It's just to be really gentle and welcome those stories. I wish somebody had told me when I was 25, hey, when you have this thought that that person shouldn't have cut you off in traffic, and now the only response that you can make is to chase them down and get super angry and get your blood pressure up and ruin your entire day, that you can instead be really gentle with yourself and say, hey, that's cool. I noticed that I'm really upset that person just cut me off, but why am I upset? Like, let me really slow that down and see, oh, you know what? I'm realizing this is showing up in my life a lot. I feel like people don't respect me. I feel like people don't give me what I deserve. I feel like people take advantage of me. And all of a sudden, it has nothing to do with this guy cutting me off. It has to do with the universe trying to show me that there's something that I'm missing that I really could pay attention to more, from a very gentle and understanding and compassionate place. And if I do that, it could be a real gift. So really just slowing down and questioning the reasons I'm triggered or the reasons I'm upset, and not beating myself up, not making myself wrong, but also seeing like, hey, there is a gift in here somewhere. There's something that's trying to emerge that if I would just listen, if I would just slow down, love myself and listen, I may see something really, really valuable that I can really use.
Yeah, I love it. I can't remember where I heard it. It was via Brian Johnson's Optimal Living stuff, but it said, we tend to overestimate what we can achieve in a year, but we underestimate what we can achieve in 3 years or 5 years or something. But yeah, it kind of ties into that, like not being in a rush for this stuff to take place.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The all or nothing thinking is one of the things that I think debilitates people more than anything. And there's a chapter in my book about this, but that the all or nothing mentality is definitely a prisoner perspective. The prisoner says, I have to do all or nothing. It has to be perfect the first time or I'm not doing it at all. Whereas a self-leader says, what change can I make right now? What little step can I take right now? Knowing that it's not my only, quote, line in the play. I have every line in the play. And if I mess up one line in the play, it doesn't tank the entire play. That I have all these options to deliver a new line in the play, to take another shot, because there's no shot is the game-winning shot. There's no one turning point in your life that if you don't make the, quote, right decision, everything goes downhill. And on the flip side of that, honestly, there's no breakthrough moment. I used to think there was a breakthrough moment in entrepreneurship. Well, if I can get this person to send stuff out on their list, or if I can get to speak on this stage, like, I had all this, if I can get a TED Talk, then my life will change. Oh, if I can speak on the Awesomeness Fest stage in Costa Rica, my life will change. Oh, if I can do this, if I can do that. And it was all, again, looking at these external things. There's no breakthrough. The breakthrough is always internal. It's always internal.
Yeah, I love that. And I suppose you could use your weight loss examples. Like, you didn't get to 330 pounds overnight. So why would you think you can get to, whatever you are now, overnight in the same way?
And people ask me, they say, how did you lose 130 pounds? And I tell them I didn't. I lost 1 pound 130 times. And to me, that's the secret to building anything successful in your inner being or in your outer doing, is just to do it 1 pound at a time.
Yeah, it makes it sound so much easier when you say it like that.
Yeah, totally.
Jason, I'm curious to hear what you think is the biggest opportunity for quarter lifers today.
The biggest opportunity for quarter lifers today. That's a really good question. No one's ever asked me that before.
Boom.
I mean, I think, I love that. That's great. Oh, we have a bad connection. I have to go. No, I'm kidding. That's really, I love that. That's a great question. I think with the way geographic borders have essentially disappeared because of the internet, it makes it easier than ever for like-minded people to connect, for tribes to form. This is why the theme of tribes wasn't around as much in the 80s or 90s, because you had to be in close proximity to people to create your tribe, and that was much harder to do just by physical limitation. So now it seems like it's just so much easier for people to connect, and so if it's really easy for people to connect, then it's also easy to see what people really need in their lives. And so if you can be someone who creates relationships and finds out what people really need, and it's something that inspires you to do as well, then there's so many opportunities for business and for connection and for service that just didn't exist in the same way before we had the internet. So to me, it's like, if there's anything in your life that you have struggled with in any way, shape, or form, and you've made any kind of headway, my caveat is I love people that are vulnerable and they share themselves and they're authentic and they share their struggles. But my one caveat is, I don't believe people should do their healing with their audience. Right. So if you're in the thick of something, I don't think you should go through your healing with your audience. But if you've even made any strides at all to move through something that has challenged you, then find some way to use that to be of service for other people. And finding people that you can be of service to, given your own circumstances and things that you've been through, is easier now than ever. So it's just a great time to be alive and to want to connect with people in the world.
Yeah, and this the fact that I'm speaking to you from South Africa and you're in the States is a perfect example of that.
I know, it's incredible. It's just absolutely incredible. And it, like I talk about in my TED Talk, like all the things that had to line up perfectly for you and I to be able to speak right now, like in our lives in general, but even just the technology that's involved right now for you and I to have this crystal clear conversation, it's flipping mind blowing. It's like I wasn't even thinking about it until just now. It's effing insane that we're doing this right now. And if we really slow down and see just how much opportunity there is out there, we will never be at a shortage of ideas on how to make money and how to be of service.
Yeah, and if you are ever in South Africa, let me know, and we can hook up for real.
Totally, I would love that.
Jason, I do want to be mindful of the time, but before I get to the final question, if people are listening to this and they want to find out more about you, and I don't know why they wouldn't, check out your talk and your free trainings and all of that good stuff, find out about the book, where can they get hold of you?
Yeah, so the best places to find me is on my website. My website is thejasongoldberg.com, which I know sounds so pretentious, but jasongoldberg.com was taken. So I had to get it makes me sound very regal. Yeah. Go to thejasongoldberg.com.
That was a good save.
Yeah, it's a good save. Yeah, I try. So that's a great place to find me. And also Facebook. I love to hang out on Facebook. I love to connect with people and continue the conversation there. And it's very easy to find me there. If you literally go to facebookjason.com, it will redirect you to my Facebook page and we can connect and be friends there too.
Oh, I like that. facebookjason.com.
Yeah, Zuckerberg will shut it down at some point, but for now it works.
Yeah, Jason, we've really touched on a lot, and I think this is going to be really valuable for people listening. And for everyone that is listening, you can get all the links and resources we mentioned at briantier.com/019. Before I get on to the final question, I just want to acknowledge you for coming on today and sharing your story so authentically and for living so authentically. I mean, throughout all your social media stuff and your website, it's very real, and you share your sense of humor. And I really love that. You know, what I love about you is like the fact that you aren't the normal sort of wishy-washy, find your purpose life coach. It's practical, actionable stuff. And I think people will see that when they go over to your website and eventually read your book when it comes out. And
well, thank you. That means a lot to me. It really does, coming from you, and it's something that, you know, I strive for that, and so to hear it reflected back from you, it means a lot, and I'm really grateful. So thank you for that. And I love the work you're doing in the world. I love the way you show up. I love your accent. But more than that, I love the mission that you're on to help people that are in this quarter life place, and it's incredible work. So please keep doing it.
Thanks, man. The final question that I have is, drum roll, what one action?
Oh God.
What one thing can listeners do this week to start creating their quarter life comeback?
Oh, I love that. Okay. So here's what I'm going to say. And it's, again, I'm not thinking, I'm just letting it come out. And this is directly showing up in my life. And so that's why this is the answer I'm going to give is, and you're going to hate this because now I'm going from being practical to being wishy-washy, but I promise it's practical, is to create some spaciousness and to sit with your own thoughts for at least an hour straight. You don't have to do any kind of crazy meditation. The kind of meditation I do now, I call sit there with your eyes closed. You can do that. You can journal. You can do whatever. But if you have a lot going on and you're not sure where to go and you're confused about this and confused about that and you're processing it all in your head, which just is never an effective way to do it, I would say sit somewhere quiet for an hour with your eyes closed or your eyes open and a journal, and just allow yourself to really just be with your thoughts. And as your thoughts are going in front of you and they say, you should have this figured out, and what's wrong with you, and you should just get a job, and why can't you find the right partner, and why aren't you making more money, and all these thoughts are coming up, allow them to be like clouds in the sky. And there is nothing that you can ever do to make the clouds pass any faster. You can't swing a stick at them like they're a piñata and break them open. They're going to pass on their own. So you may as well just sit there and enjoy the show. Grab the popcorn, watch the thoughts in front of you, realize that you are the thinker of your thoughts, you are not your thoughts, and see how calm and conscious you become. And from that place, you can create anything that you want to create. So spaciousness is really the thing that I would say. And the reason it's coming up for me is because I was challenged by one of my coaches to go take literally an entire week off, 7 days off from running my company, which is terrifying to me. And I'm going to take 7 days off in July, and I'm going into a cabin in the mountains of Tennessee to be by myself, and I'm going to be doing for 7 days what I just told your listeners to do for an hour.
I love it. Jason Goldberg, JG, thanks for coming on the Quarter Life Comeback.
My pleasure, man. Lots of love to you.
So there you have it, guys. That wraps up this amazing interview and episode with Jason Goldberg. As I said, so much powerful stuff that we mentioned in the call, and I'm sure you got a lot out of it. If you like, send me a tweet with your biggest takeaways. That's at Brian Tier, and let me know what you thought of the interview. Also include Jason there. It's at Jason the Speaker. And just let us know what you thought. For me, the biggest takeaway was probably the fact that, our unhappiness and, if we're feeling uninspired, it's not a case of outside factors that are at play. And we have the ability to choose how we feel in every moment. As always, as I said, you can catch the links and resources we mentioned in the show notes. That's at briantier.com/019. And we didn't mention it in the interview, but Jason was kind enough after our call to mention some resources on self-leadership that he put together, which he normally only shares with paying clients and speaking clients. And you can catch those at the show notes. Again, it's briantier.com/019. If you guys like these interviews and want to get them as soon as they come out, make sure you subscribe at quarterlifecomeback.com. But for now, keep creating your quarter life comeback.
Thanks for listening to the Quarter Life Comeback. Get started today by visiting briantier.com.